Hi everyone, and welcome back to First Rank Fire. In today's episode, we've got a new guest joining us, which is amazing. He's the author of probably one of the most comprehensive free painting guides out there. He has been the reason for spawning many new, maybe even like hundreds of new Space Marine chapters, and just a general nice guy. Welcome to the show, Norm, aka DiceandPigment. How you doing?
Thank you. Doing very good, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into some of the reasons behind some of that intro there later on in the podcast, probably. But I will kick off. You're a new guest, so can you tell me a bit of your sort of hobby history?
Yeah, so I'm 34 now. I probably got into Warhammer when, Christ, I would have been maybe 8 or 9 years old, like a lot of people were. We had a local shop we got like a shopping mall near us, and that's where our store was. So my older brother and me kind of got into it, and yeah, I probably did what most people did, where you do it for a few years and then you're on to the next fad or whatnot. To be honest with you, what got me into it was Lord of the Rings. Obviously, I enjoyed the movies, and then on the outdoor, they had like a display window on this sort of shop front, and a lot of the Middle-earth stuff was being displayed in there. And then obviously when you go in, it's like, oh my God, there's a lot more than just Middle-earth. Well, Middle-earth was probably a tiny sort of, at that time, it definitely wasn't what it is now. Even now it's still quite small. And I've always been I'm a fantasy nerd. So although I do like 40k, I'm like, fantasy has my heart. So I'm sort of a big online gamer, and I always played sort of the fantasy MMOs. But yeah, so that's kind of how I first got into the hobby, and then scrapped it all. I think when I was about 18, I ended up, I think my mum said,
as we all did.
You know what? I think she was like, my mum went up into the loft and she said, "What's all this stuff that's up in the loft in these black cases?" And I can remember, I think at the time I'd got a new car and I wanted some new alloy wheels, and I said, "Oh, bring it all down. I'm going to sell it." And I did. I sold everything, and yeah, it was like all my Middle-earth stuff. I had some Space Orcs. My brother's, he had like a half decent Nid collection, which he still reminds me that I sold.
It's fair game when it's been that long.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I got decent money for it. Paid for the alloys, I think.
Nice.
And then randomly, so probably, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I didn't necessarily stop online gaming through choice. It's just a game that I played quite a lot. The developers made some questionable changes, and sort of me and my friendship group at the time, if you like, all just drifted away from the game. And I then did that thing where you start surfing YouTube, and randomly, and I mean randomly, because I hadn't looked at anything Warhammer related in years, but it was just I think it was Tabletop Ready, how to paint a Space Marine. It was just an Ultramarine video, and I was like, Warhammer, and I ended up clicking on it, watched it, and yeah, the rest is literally history. So I managed to...
just post-COVID, right? So
yeah, it was after COVID for me.
Post-COVID, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I know. I hear about how many people came in during COVID, and obviously hobby accounts that blew up because of that and whatnot. Missed opportunity, but yeah, yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? There's never a right or wrong time. It's just a lot more people had plenty of time at home, but no, work didn't allow me to have any more time off. Unfortunately, we worked through COVID and whatnot. But yeah, so I ended up, I did that, managed to get 3 of my friends to start Warhammer who had never done it before. So they were kind of like, what? Painting little plastic men? And then we ended up going to Warhammer World because it's only like an hour away from me. And they're like, yeah, all right. So I think one of them started Tau, believe it or not. the other was Space Orcs, and the other was Eldari.
Okay.
And all three of them no longer touch Warhammer. But fair enough. They gave it a
They
go,
tried it.
and at that point, I then managed to rope my brother back in, and yeah, that's kind of yeah. It essentially became a replacement for online gaming for me
Yeah.
because I'd spend 3 or 4 evenings a week. I don't know, 4 to 5 hours just online gaming with like quite a tight knit group that I've known for a lot of years, and I was like, I don't know, I miss that sort of social
Yeah.
side of things, which I know obviously painting on your own in a hobby room is not particularly social, which is why I ended up roping other people into it. We used to have
Yeah.
when I managed to rope my friends into it. We had Thursday evenings was Warhammer night round at my house, so the kitchen table
Nice.
became the painting table. Yeah, but as they phased out, I was like, oh, this ain't good. I'm going to be back to being on my own. So my brother lives probably about an hour away, so we just do Discord sessions and or
Nice.
FaceTime sessions, and yeah, that's basically how I got back.
Yeah. And you started your Instagram, and now you've got all of the online friends.
Yeah, funnily enough, one of the friends that I managed to get into Warhammer is into D&D, and he runs quite a big D&D account, and
Okay.
he started a Warhammer account when I'd got him back into it, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to start a Warhammer account at the same time," and I was like, "You know what? I'll do it with you." So we ended up kind of doing a joint Warhammer account, and then when he sort of phased off, I was like piggybacked on the back of these 2,000 followers that he'd managed to rope in, and that's pretty much
Are you nearing
how I
seven and
got.
a half thousand?
Yeah,
So
something like
yeah,
that.
really getting there.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
How long you been doing your? How long has your Instagram been going on? Was it pretty much the sort of 2 year since you've been starting back
Yeah,
at the hobby?
yeah. I reckon I've probably been running that Instagram account for 18 months, maybe something like
Oh,
that.
okay. So yeah, excuse me, close to the 2 years then. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
would say so.
and now you're on this podcast, which is obviously the pinnacle of the podcast, but you're also now on Stibio.
Obviously.
So yeah, Stibio's had you
Yeah.
in for roped you in for a few there. You talking about starting your own YouTube channel and things like that. So
Yeah, I think so. I'm just one of those people that I can't. I'm just like head first, dive in, know nothing, all the gear,
it's
no
yeah,
idea. Yeah,
this
basically.
hobby's a good one for it though. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
I've spoken to a lot of different people who are of various sizes on Instagram, everything like that. It feels like everyone was just like, oh no, I just did it and I didn't stop. I just kept like I came back into the hobby and I sort of skated through for quite a few years. I was like, I want to make a podcast,
yeah,
just because. And then literally, I was like, right, cool, go. And I've not looked back since. I'm deeper in this hobby than almost ever before. And you're like, how did this happen?
yeah. I think that's kind of what you got. I think just doing it is definitely the way forward. If
Yeah,
you can easily and I am like I think I mentioned in Stevio's podcast, to be fair, but I'm my own worst enemy in that I need everything to be perfect. If you told me like, oh, you need this, I'm getting it, but I can't do anything until I get it, because I'm like, no. And I think that's the advice that everyone sort of seems to give is start and just fix the mistakes after you start.
yeah, oh yeah. I am a walking example of that. I said this a couple times. I went back and I re-edited some of the Quipster episode to look at doing the video. I
Yeah.
can't listen back to that first episode. I just I just sound
Cringe
so
and die.
robotic. Honestly, I sound so robotic. I was obviously super nervous, and it being Quipster, obviously, it's quite a big account and stuff like that. It was weird. It was the same with the mini War Gamer Dave episode. That's probably the only one again where it kind of hit me. I was like, wait, I'm talking to Dave. Like I've been watching Dave
Yeah.
for nearly a decade. How is this happening? And you like I can I think a couple of people could genuinely tell like, oh no, you were nervous that an episode, weren't you? I was like, yeah, you
That's
just
it.
got
But
to do
it's
it.
yeah, and you can't like it is what it is, isn't it? You learn from those things, and if anything, they're not mistakes. It's just experience. I'll use as an example where I say that I'm my own worst nightmare is that, so after I'd kind of released the guide, I said, you know what, I'm going to create a YouTube channel. It's kind of going to sort of fill the online gaming gap, because when I used to game, I streamed a bit and I had a YouTube channel for the game that I played, which was like a fairly the game was quite small, but the channel was quite big for that game. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do a YouTube channel. And again, I've managed to rope my brother in, and he was like, you know what, if you want to do the channel, I'll do the editing. And I was like, brilliant.
Nice.
Happy days. So I think I started, this is going to make you chuckle when you realise, but I think I started recording footage for that channel in May. And I said, yeah. So I said, what I want to do is I want to get 10 videos in the bank just to give a buffer, because obviously I work a lot, I've got a family and whatnot, and I didn't want to do the thing where you were releasing videos and then all of a sudden there was a big window. So I said, if we can get 10 in the bank and then still try and create one a week, it kind of gives you a 10-week buffer or a 20-week buffer if you're doing one every 2 week. And then I started to do some renovations at home. We've put like an extension on and stuff. And at that point I was like, you know what, I want to change my hobby room round. So I've just changed my hobby room round, and
what a hobby room.
Yeah, I'm happy. This is the thing, is beforehand it was kind of like a mishmash of all my different hobbies that I've had or have. Whereas now it's it does feel quite uniformed, but I've sorted out all the recording equipment and whatnot. And my issue is now I look at those videos that I created and I'm like, and the best thing is I'm on here and I'm saying to you, oh, you just need to do it. Those videos will never ever release, mate. Like, ever. They're not going to release. Like, but it's quite funny, even just from the sort of 7 videos or whatever it was, 7-8 videos that we made. I'd already said to my brother, like, after I made the 7th, I was like, I'm going to have to remake the first one, because now I watch it, like you say, you're almost, it doesn't sound like me. Like, I've got this different accent that, like, just a weird thing. And that's just through never being on camera and not really, I mean, I think you do still have like I'm talking to you on this now, and I can tell that it's not like I'm down at work with people that I know and talking, giving it all the lingo and whatnot. But it is, when you're recording videos, all of a sudden you feel like, there's a weird sort of pressure, which I'm sure goes over time, and you just it does, because 7 videos in, I was much more comfortable. But you definitely,
I think there's still something. There's still a little kick. There's still, like, I mean, I record these relatively late, or almost all of them, and every single time I'll finish recording, I won't be able to go straight to bed, guarantee it. I'll need some downtime afterwards. There's just like a little adrenaline kick every single time you do it. And this is like this 40-something episode of recorded, something like that. And it's never truly gone away. I feel a lot more relaxed, and I think everything's a lot more natural, but you still do get that little feeling inside you.
It's but it's part of it, I suppose. That's why you do it.
Yeah, exactly. If you do, like, it is an enjoyable feeling. At first, you kind of don't necessarily feel that way, but after a while, you're like, oh no, I do this for this kick. It's nice to chat with people, and you get this little kick from it as well. It's quite nice. Yeah,
that's it. I think initially you sort of think you do kind of, when you're not. It's a bit different if that's your job or something, but when you're not used to creating that type of content, I think initially you just get that, like, you judge yourself and you're like, oh God, who is going to want to listen to me, or who's going to want to do that? But I think if you just get past you're obviously creating it for other people, but like, if they don't like it, they don't have to listen to it. And
exactly,
it ain't going to affect them, so don't let it affect you. And I think if you just get that mindset, then you can definitely have more fun with it, because you're just creating stuff that you want to create, rather than trying to create stuff that you think other people are going to want to listen to.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so there's some history and some future.
Yeah.
What have you been working on recently? Let's go back into the actual questions. What sort of projects have you been working on recently? Given that as we're recording, you are to become a father again at any point. So I imagine
Yeah.
your projects are
I
fairly
could be
limited.
scooting away during the podcast.
Yeah.
You know what? Although obviously I've got my son's 3 and I've got another on the way. Both me and my missus, I'm quite fortunate that we're like very much creatures of habit and routine. In that I'm like, our weeks are very similar each week. In that I'm like, these days are my hobby days. These days are our
Yeah.
days, and and it just works for us. Obviously, I know that
Yep.
other people are going to be thinking, "Oh God, that sounds so boring," but structure just
I'm the
works for
same.
us, and
I am
it's
100. Yeah, we're 100% the same.
yeah. Like I couldn't be early in, I couldn't be saying sort of right, what am I doing this week? I don't know what days I have to myself. So yeah, although I am busy, we do have. I've got a fair bit of structure, obviously, and a new one on the way is going to shake that up initially. But I hope that
Yes.
it does settle.
Yeah.
If anything, we've been obviously doing the extension on the house, and that's what turned my hobbying upside down because
Mm,
my my hobby room, although we haven't been doing an extension on that or anything, it kind of became a dumping ground for right. We need this out of that room, throw it in
yeah.
there, and it got to the point where although I could still move in here, I'd open the door, I'd walk in, and I was like, I don't enjoy being in this room. Like
Yeah.
it is not a nice space to be in. So I just scrapped it,
Yeah.
even down to like sitting on the computer. I didn't enjoy sitting on the PC in here. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna, and it's kind of why I ended up creating the new hobby room. But I'm gonna pick up some projects that I'd started on kind of before the little break, which is I'd started working on a model which you have also worked on, I believe, More Crusher.
Oh
Um,
yes. Yeah. Your Charizard Maw Crusher.
Yeah, so I'd obviously airbrushed all the colours in with that and got some like fairly nice sort of organic looking
Mm,
transitions. And then the plan is to do. I just watched Vince Ventrella's How to Paint Monsters video, and it's a more crusher that he's doing, and
yeah.
he does a similar sort of thing where he then cakes it in streaking grime, and then just gets at it. And so that's
Yeah.
the plan. I want to finish that. Just as a fun model, just because I quite like
Yeah.
the
It's a
idea
cool
of it.
model.
Not yeah, it's a really nice looking model. And then prior to a similar time, just as a little side project, I was working on trying to paint a ridiculously detailed Space Marine head with
Mm,
Josh, who also knows Jajiko. I don't know the numbers on the end of his Instagram handle, but yeah, just put Jajiko in and you're gonna find it. And I'd kind of reached out to him and said at one point, like, how the hell are you painting these things? And he was like, people ask me this, but I think you're going to think it's ridiculous when you see the sort of magnification lenses that I've created myself. And he kind of told me about it. And this is where I say I'm one of them that's just deep dives in. So as soon as he told me, I bought what you needed off Amazon, made it, and then I sent him a picture saying, is this right? And he was like, okay. He's like, you're the first person that I've told that has then like actually
Gone and
made
done it.
these things. Yeah. So then I think from his side of things, he was like, yeah. So I think Josh kind of saw me as his pet at one point and was like, right, let's see what's what. Because when I first put these we joke and call them the super zoomers. So when we first put them on, I was like, nah, I can't get a focus point on these at all. And then it's basically because I'd set them up wrong, and it's obviously
Ah,
you're talking like minute changes. Um, and then he was like, I see what you've done, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting them set up correct. I mean, you have to, and I'm not joking when I say this, you have to paint 5 inches from your face. Like, that is and
don't we all
because
do
of
that anyway?
obviously
But like this.
yeah, but it's like, and because of sort of the depth that you're looking at, the tiniest movements bring it in and out of focus. So
Yeah.
you've kind of just holding it in one space, but it genuinely does make a Space Marine head end up being about this kind of size. And
Interesting.
but yeah, so I started painting that with him, and he kind of told me like what we painted a head side by side, and although I haven't finished that yet, it's the first time I've kind of been following something that I feel is above my ability, if you like, that
Okay, yeah.
has worked. And I was like, hang on a minute, I'm managing to do this. This is like, okay, this is quite interesting. And he'd said to me at the time, he says, you have to remember that I'm taking photos through a microscope lens. He was like, when you see these heads in person, he went, you're not going to be as impressed as what you are on these photos. So he ended up sending me, he sent me 5 heads out. He said, I'm going to send you some out and you can study them. And
Oh, cool.
I got them in hand. And I mean, he's doing that thing where he's saying, you're not going to be impressed in person. They're very impressive. But you
look like real people's heads.
Yeah. You can't appreciate like the detail on it until you put like, I got them out of the package to begin with, and I was like, yeah, these are brilliant. But it wasn't until I put my super zoomers on and started looking them through those, I was like, all right, I can now see that this is basically a portrait painting on a Space Marine's head, which is crazy.
That's insane. Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to finish that head and just get the approval from him, if you like, to be like, yeah, all right, that's good. And then I think after Christmas, I'd spoke to a few of the people that are in the Painters Portal Discord and said, does anyone want to do like a bit of a face painting? Not a competition, but just a bit of a, like, right, let's learn how to paint some faces together. And I think that's going to come after Christmas. And Josh will probably paint one up as well and show everyone up. And yeah, but that's
blow
that's
everything out of the water.
Yeah, so they're the previous projects, and then on the table at the minute, I have got I've just started on the is it Thran? I don't know how you pronounce it. Thranduil, the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so on the elk, I've just started on that, which is my first experience with resin, which is absolutely horrible stuff to work with.
I won't touch it. Yeah, I refuse to touch it.
I can't believe you know what? It's a nice model. It's got really nice detail on it. I posted something up on my Instagram because I was a bit appalled that the reins weren't cut out. It was like a solid piece of resin, and I managed. You know what? I've managed to get that to a point that I'm happy with. But
good effort.
I then glued it together, and I could not believe how many gaps and how poorly aligned it was. And so it's basically covered in epoxy putty at the moment and going to get sanded down to see what's what. But no, I watched one of the Cult of Paint tutorials when Andy Wardle's been doing his most recent it a diorama that he'd done with like a wood elf stag. And I really liked the tutorial for painting the fur, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. So that's on the table. And then me, myself, and 41st Morning Dave have all bought a Kill Team apiece. So I have got that to start. So I got the Scouts. So I'm going to start
nice.
Start one of those, I think. Yeah, that's the plan for I say short-term future, but that's got potential to take me all of next year.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, when my second was born, there was that period of paternity leave, parental leave, because I took some shared parental, where I was still painting because I had time off, and I was like, well, I'm used to not sleeping, so actually I'm a little bit more cognitive because this is my second child. So actually, I did more painting in the first 4 weeks than I did in the 2 months after that. I stopped. I just couldn't do anything because I was just it just hit me again of like, oh, I'm working and I have a second child. This is killing me. But I got back into podcasting much quicker. It took me, I think, when the first was born, there was probably like a full year before I did any hobby. I just put down the hobby completely. It was during COVID anyway. I was still working, but I just put down the hobby near completely. Didn't paint anything. I didn't play. That was before I had the First Rank Fire podcast and stuff like that. About a year. I think I was away from the podcast for 6 or 7 months before I started recording again to come back. And I thought the podcast would be like a year. because it is quite a lot of work. You've sort of seen YouTube wise, there's
Yeah.
quite a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and it does take up a crazy amount of time. So it was always a case of, do I want to go away and paint stuff and maybe play games, or do I want to do the podcast? So yeah, got back into painting and playing a little bit earlier, and then the podcast has come back way sooner. So that's positive. You might get back sooner than you realise, but
I think so. I
it
think
take
for
time.
me, it's I need to make the most of sort of smaller pockets of time. I'm often my own worst enemy at needing 2 hours. Like if I've got an hour, I'm like, nah, it's pointless. When really you can get more done in an hour than what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah. We'll see.
I still do it now. There'll be a bit where I'm like, I'm doing something with the kids or something like that, and I'm just going to step away because all I can think about is one particular bit on this model, and I'll come into here. All of my stuff lives in this cupboard. I'll come into here, I'll open the cupboard, and I'll just like have a paintbrush, just do that one little bit, put it down, and then walk away. So I'll do it just during the day. Like I'm just going to paint that one tiny little bit. I'll go and do, because obviously I'm using the ready base stuff now for a lot of my quick models. I'll just go and do one model, put some glue on it, rock it around. There's a base done.
Yeah.
It's changed how
if you do stuff like that. Yeah. That's, I think, like I say, and I don't do that. I'm guilty of being like, right, if like at the minute my missus will go to bed quite early throughout a pregnancy and whatnot, and sometimes she might go a little bit later than usual, and I normally go to bed maybe 11:30. So if it's past 9:30 when she goes to bed, I just instantly get in my head where I'm like, it's pointless. And I'll just end up sitting there watching something stupid on TV or doom scrolling on the phone. And like the next day, I always think like, you should have just started, even if it's like whacking a base coat down or, thinking sometimes I have this thing where I'm like, no, I need this amount of time to do the session because this is what I want the outcome to be. Whereas in really, you should just be like, well, whatever I get done, I get done.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I do it. I guess when you've only got that amount of time, you change what you think your outcome's going to be. Because at the minute, you're probably used to having that time to go like, oh no, I want to do this. Whereas it could be baby number 2 comes around and you go, actually, my outcome is get that base coat down or do that specific thing, and all of a sudden it opens up a lot more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Slow progress is still progress. So
exactly, any progress is worthwhile in this hobby. Anything is worthwhile. So do you just paint, or do you get much time to play, or have you had much time to play?
I have never played a game. To be honest with you, when I got my friends back into it, it was on the sort of persuasion of, right, we're going to play this tabletop game. And we did, to be fair, we sort of went into the local Games Workshop store and started learning how to play. And then I think a couple of us, I've always preferred painting. And that was the issue, is we all bought a Combat Patrol. And one of my mates literally primed the whole thing white. He whacked contrast paint on it, and happy days, he was done. And my issue is I bought I can't remember, I think it was like Ultramarines Combat Patrol, and I started painting my first model and realised that if I painted the whole Combat Patrol at the pace which I'd painted my first model, I probably still wouldn't be through that Combat Patrol. And I just ended up saying, like, listen, I just prefer to paint. Like, I'll build these models up and I'll play against you unprimed or whatever. And then those guys just dropped out anyway. So that's sort of not the only reason. I do prefer to paint, but I can't really speak 100% honestly about that because I've never had a proper game. The plan is, although I know the same thing's going to happen with the kill team, in that I'm going to want to paint it, or I know I'm not going to be capable of doing this, but in my mind, I want to paint it to Eric Swinson level of white scouts, and I know that's not going to happen. But I know that I'm just going to sink some time into it. But so like essentially, Dave lives like smack bang in the middle of me and my brother, and he lives
Okay.
5 minutes away from it's a local store called Leodis Games, which are like
Yep.
big on table. Obviously, you can go in there like full every single night with gaming. So he'd said, you know, we'll get some kill teams together, and if we can do, it's a decent place to meet up once a month or whatever. But I have no idea how to play, so I couldn't even tell you. If I've no doubt I will find it fun, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, some people don't. Obviously, I've chatted with Stevie a few times. You know Stevie quite well. That man has so many thousands of points of beautiful models that have never seen the tabletop. It's insane.
Yeah.
But if that's the preference, that is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, isn't it? I suppose it's like, again, comes down to time, like in the painting, you kind of don't need that schedule of having to be. Although, yeah, I have a schedule in that. All right, I'm going to paint tonight. It's not like you've then got to be like, right, I'm going to be playing a game. I'll meet you here or whatever. You've got, as I say, I don't have any. I didn't have any friends that played or anything like that. So then it's getting involved with a club or finding. We do have a couple of places near me. To be fair, Hobby Workshop are only like 15 minutes down the road from me. And although they're a small store, they've got like a mezzanine floor in their shop, and upstairs is just a gaming room. So we do have, I suppose I do have the facilities, but yeah, it's just probably purely down to not having anything that I could play with. If I had a painted kill team or whatever, I'd give it a go.
I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, I think playing is a much bigger time sink. Just the pure amount of time to play. Well, I mean, even in a tournament, you're looking at like 2.5 hours. I don't think we've ever completed a game in 2.5 hours to 5 turns. You're sinking. I mean, especially if you're going as more of like a social thing, you're probably sinking a good 4 or 5 hours into playing a game. Which, if you think about how much painting you can get done in 4.5 hours, I guess it's like you say, it's then how do you choose to do choose your time?
Pretty much. But I suppose, yeah, like I say, we'll see. It may be a once a month or once every couple of months thing. My brother's he's ended up getting involved in. So we've managed to rope his kids in, and his son's like gone. I'm talking ultra obsessed.
Nice.
But even he's got 3 daughters and 1 son. The two eldest daughters, they do want particular armies themselves, but his son's like gone crazy on it. And they had a Warhammer club at school, and my brother's ended up volunteering and helping out at the Warhammer club. So from that, he's seen. So it's a paint or play club, so you can go and paint or you can go and play. He's seen the kids playing, and he's said like, it looks pretty fun, you know. We should try this out. So I do. It is coming, but just probably slowly based on the pace of painting.
Yeah, I already know your YouTube might be a playing YouTube by the time you actually release a video.
Yeah, maybe. But I already know that Dave is going to be like, because that man paints some, like if he gets it in his mind, he's just like, right, I'm going to paint this. And I already know he's going to finish like 5-6 kill teams by the time we finish one. It's going to happen.
He's finished that in the time that we've been talking. So yeah probably.
Probably. I would imagine.
To a ridiculous standard. He paints to an insane standard so quickly. I don't know how he does it personally, but.
It's because he's a nutter and he sits on the sofa with a bloody miner's helmet on and paints there. And I'm like, I have no idea how you do this. Like, I just...
His poor partner is trying to like watch a film and he's there with it.
Yeah, crazy. But that's, it's making the most of like time in that, he'll say, if him and his missus are just having sort of like an evening where you're not watching a film, where they're just chatting in the living room, she's sort of doom scrolling on the phone or whatever, and he's like, why would I not, even if it's just building, like, why would I not get my stuff out? But I'm like, I just need to be in this room, door shut, in the zone, like,
I'm the same. I used to try and paint in the front room. I've got a little tray that I could do on and stuff like that, and I was just like, I can't. I need I need the space. I need something hard to rest on. I need all my lights and everything like that. Yeah, I can't. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. No.
It's fair enough. So, obviously playing something I'm looking forward to. Is there anything the GW's come out? So I was having this conversation on the last podcast with Dave, And I've been really unimpressed with GW recently. Have you got anything that you're looking forward to that's coming out or just come out?
That's coming out or just come out. Don't know. You
Yeah, I
know
mean, I
what? I
think the
don't.
Kill Team is probably the closest, but
Yeah, I don't. Probably not.
I'm
But
glad
I'm
it's not
not a
just me.
massive. Yeah, there's not really been anything like massively hyped, if you like. I really liked
Mm,
the Fulgrim model when that came out until they dropped the
yeah,
price of it, and then I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I
leave that on the shelf, and it's resin,
Yeah,
so
but
not a
again,
chance.
like it's uh, we had this conversation where like it's resin. Why is it resin? It makes no sense. Like
No,
because it's resin, you're adding that sort of premium price to it. And I did end up going to Warhammer World not long after it released, so I saw it painted up in one of the cabinets, and I was like, "Yeah, you just can't justify this price for
mm,
this model when there are models that are the same size with the same level of detail that are in plastic that are 85 quid."
yeah. I find it insane when you look at like the Gargants and things like that that sit
Yeah.
over in AOS, or the what's the Kernoth one on the they look like the Kernoth on the Beetle.
Yeah,
They're
I know what you
insane,
mean. But you're
insane
talking like,
models for
yeah, a lot of I think the sort of the Sigma models are the ones to compare it to because, like, a lot of those, like, the big crazy winged models with like insane amounts of detail, and there's a lot of them in Sigma. You're like, nah, if you can create that from plastic, there's no reason why that thing should be resin. And to me, in my opinion, it's purely down to, well, we can, and you can charge a premium for it.
it's heresy. It's you can do it. It will be interesting to see if they bring out a plastic Fulgrim, like an ascended Fulgrim, in the Emperor's Children release that they'll do in
Yeah.
theory some point soon. They've got to. Surely you can't bring out Emperor's Children without bringing out a Fulgrim model. Surely.
Yeah, you would think so.
And it's 40k, so it almost has to be plastic. I don't really know. I guess there are a few models like Samael, the Dark Angels Ravenwing Master. I think he's
Yeah.
resin. So I guess there are some. But do you know of many new models that are resin in 40k?
Nah.
They just don't do them. It's going to have to be plastic. So I wonder what they'll do with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see like I said, you're going back to the real need for it. But when I'd first got into the hobby, I did the typical thing that I do in sort of every like shopping experience, and that I think I'd gone on Forge World and put in highest price first.
The
And
Manta, yeah, or
uh,
is it the Titan? Is that the
I
most
think it's
expensive?
Warlord, the Warlord Titan. And I'd said to my brother, like, we need a Warlord Titan, and he'd seen it and he was like, yeah, that's not bad. And then the other day, I think I watched, I forget his name, but someone he'd got is it the Reaver Titan?
Yeah,
Oh my days! I saw him assembling that thing, and he was just like, "When you're spending this much money, it should not be this much of a job for me to clean
mm,
up and assemble this model." He's like, he'd had to put the helmet into like red hot water to then fix it in place, so that then once it cooled down, it had set.
it
And I'm
like
like, you
expanded back
should,
into it. Yeah,
yeah. And I think he ended up because he was like, he'd said, "Oh, I want this to be a tabletop piece." So he didn't want it to be so heavy. So any part of it that he could hollow out, he was hollowing out. And at the end of it, he just has this pile of resin. And I'm thinking,
mm.
what? But you're talking
It is
power tools
bonkers.
and everything. Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah,
No
I think
need.
the guy over at Midwinter said the exact same thing. Like, why? Because obviously he's got the Warlord Titan. It's got that big fancy scroll of all of the
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
patrons or something. It was like, why? Why is every piece warped? Why is every piece wrong? Why are the bits missing? Because I think did Stibio have the same issue when he bought the
Yeah, I think
Thunderhawk?
he
He had
had
like bits missing, and
one. Did he have a piece missing or a piece warped? Um, and even
when you
then,
paid that much
we
money,
yeah, we spoke about this on. I spoke with him about it on the last podcast, and he was saying like it's bad that he's saying no. It was like actually it wasn't that bad. There was only one piece that needed replacing. And then he basically goes on to say, and when I say that, I mean that there was one piece that I physically couldn't do anything with. There are plenty of pieces that I'm looking at thinking, this needs a lot of work. Like, and you're like, yeah, nah. When you're paying that money, you should be getting it should be a good experience. Yeah. Like, yeah, it should be you're paying $1,000 or 1,500 quid, whatever the Warlord Titan is for, when you fully deck it out. It should be a pleasure to build. You should be like, yes, this is a great experience. But yeah, it's not.
It's the fact that you're buying you're having to get 2-part epoxy resins and stuff like that to stick it, because it's so heavy and stuff like that. So you're having to use resins rather than glues. I just don't. Don't get me wrong. I think the models look absolutely incredible when they're finished, but I just don't see the appeal of buying one and making it. I think Dave posted a video. Mini War Gamer Dave posted a video the other day. Was he on at Play? Was he ever at Play On? He picked up their Mantra and broke a gun off it. I don't what. It's just I can't see the appeal to them. Just resin. I'll just won't touch it. I hate resin. Won't touch it with a barge pole.
I'd said this to. I managed to rope a guy at work into. I say this. He's kind of always known about law, and he's recently picked up some of the models and started painting. And he was the one who sent me this video about the Reaver Titan. And after I'd watched that, I was like, you know what, it's not something I'd want to do by myself. I think if I was picking that up, it'd have to be as a group project. I'd have to be saying, you know what, I'm going to work on this with a couple of people and have a laugh while doing it, because otherwise I just don't. I've got a really short temper with stuff like that, and it'd be one of those that'd just be like, nah, I'm not touching that anymore. Right, on the Reaver, he's having to. He was having to reposition every single leg, and then because, like you said, they're having to epoxy it. You can't. He's trying to essentially stick something together that can't be stuck together until another piece is in, but you can't put that piece in because you need to hold these two. Yeah, just like a bloody puzzle. Nah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not for me. It's not for me. So yeah, I mean, so maybe they'll bring out a new Fulgrim. I do have an issue with Primark. I didn't pick up Angron, so I've curbed my addiction, but I love the Primark models. I own everyone but Angron at the minute. So
I've got to be fair. I've literally just bought Angron, so he's sat on the shelf.
Part of me just doesn't like that model.
Really?
So I love it as a model, but I would love it more if they brought it out as an exalted Bloodthirster.
All right.
It just, when you look at Magnus, Mortarion, I mean, you look at Mortarion, I think Mortarion is an absolutely incredible model. You look at the Lion, they're still Primarchs. They're still human, almost.
Yeah,
they've all got that base to them, whereas Angron just isn't. You kind of look at him and go, "You're just a Bloodthirster." I'm like, I get that's the corn thing, but at the same time, you could still make Angron. For me, when you read the lore about Angron, you could still take who he is and turn him into something better. I think I just wouldn't have done him that way. But
yeah, I get what you're saying. He's lost his identity of being sort of once a man sort of thing.
Yeah. Whereas Mortarion, I like the Mortarion model. Do I prefer it to the Lion? No, I can't say that. I prefer the Lion because I'm a diehard Dark Angels fan. The Mortarion model is fantastic. For me, it's like the perfect Demon Prince. It's such a beautiful model. You can still see Mortarion in there, but you can see the effect Nurgle has on him. He's not like. Look at Magnus. He's yes, he's got wings and stuff like that. You can sort of see the effect of Tzeentch. You can see the effect of Nurgle on Mortarion, but you can still see them as Primarchs. Whereas Angron, I see Khorne and then a bit of Angron because he's got the World Eater shoulder pads on and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I've not bought. Exalted Bloodthirster. Yeah, happy days. But yeah. So I hope they do that with Fulgrim.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
I know I'll have a big snake tail, but as long as the sort of upper heart, that's that Fulgrim Ascended model is really cool because you can still see it's Fulgrim. So yeah, I've got hopes.
Yeah,
The
just
ascendant model
potentially
did
can
make
be.
me feel. Yeah, that's the thing. The ascendant model did make me feel more sort of. I think this is going to be good because if you can still see Fulgrim at the top of that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then he's got like he's been tainted by Slanesh, but he's still Fulgrim. I think that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we'll see. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, I'll go on to something completely different now, because we talked about it at the start when I introduced you. I have to talk about your guide. It's the Painters Portal. Absolutely incredible. Like, where did the idea for that come from?
Again, like I say, I'm just a bit of a freak in that I'm like, yeah, I'm new into this hobby, so why don't we just create a guide? But that's essentially where it came from, is that I just plan stuff way too much in that I'd like when I started sort of the hobby, I was like, all right, let's start learning everything. What are all these terms? What is this, that, and the other? And then I'd sort of, I bet 2 months before I even put sort of paint to a model, I was just watching YouTube videos and being like, all right, save that. All right, save this.
Mm,
It's pointless. And again, I know it's the wrong way. I think I even said in the guide, like, it is the wrong way to do things, but I'm very much like, it's absolutely pointless in me putting paint to this model if I'm not doing it right. So let's watch everything and get all the knowledge first. And I'd got like just like a folder on my PC that just had all this stuff saved in it. And when I roped my brother back into the hobby, he'd sort of say, "Oh, what's this? How do I do that? Blah blah blah." And I didn't have to look for it because I was just like, "Oh, I've got this video saved. Just send him this." I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
I've got this saved." And then I ended up getting quite a lot of stuff off Reddit, and there's um there's a mini painting subreddit, and
Hmm.
it it does actually have like a similar-ish thing to the Painters Portal in that it's got like a not necessarily a guide, but obviously subsections within it. You can find
Yeah.
anything. But I just find Reddit's quite it's not exactly user friendly, especially on the phone, in
Yeah.
that like it just isn't.
Yeah.
You you end up kind of doing that thing where you can go from Reddit and you end up going down the black hole, and then if you're like, all right, I need to go back 5 steps, it's quite easy to lose yourself.
Definitely.
So I was like, you know what, maybe I could make something out of this, and I just started writing some stuff. And then again, I'd said to my brother, I'm going to make this, going to make a guide. And he was like, right, what is it? And I was like, well, I'm not necessarily making the guide, and it essentially is just going to become kind of like a directory for
Yeah.
us to use. And if we're going to use it, then I may as well make it kind of public for everyone to use, because I would have loved something like this when I got back in the hobby.
Hmm.
And they're just, yeah, there is plenty of stuff around. Like, obviously, I'm not saying there isn't anything, but there's not really like everything in one place.
Certainly not.
Um,
That's not behind a paywall. I think
yeah,
if
yeah,
you were to
exactly.
go through a paywall, there's the odd one or two that exist out there. Even then, I'd argue they're not as comprehensive as the guide that you've put out. If you're a beginner, even if you're not a beginner painter, you've got more experience. The different techniques that sit within that guide are so comprehensive. It's a really really good place to go and find stuff.
Yeah, that was it. And I was a bit like, so when because obviously I'd got essentially other people's videos saved, and I was like, I'm not trying to like, and I'm not passing this off as my own, and they're
Hmm.
all credited within the guide. But like, I don't know, let's say one of the videos I think that of every video I think that's on YouTube is I forget again. Is it? I want to say it's potentially by Brushstroke Painting Guides. It's the how to thin your paints or why to thin your paints.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
Yes.
could. It may be someone else. So if it is someone else, I do apologise. But I like anyone who asks about thinning paints, I would always send them that video, because to me, it's one of those things where like you often see YouTube videos and think, yeah, people could recreate this and put their own spin on it. That video never ever needs recreating. He's completed it, and if anyone is thinking of creating a guide on why you should thin your paints, don't, because
Don't bother.
it, like yeah, it just it covers everything. So I was like, videos like that are in there. He's getting credited. If anything, people, they're going to come there to the guide, and they may have potentially not seen that video before. They're going to go there, and he's getting the view. It's, he's still going through YouTube. And I was like, yeah, we'll have a go at this. And then at the same time, I didn't want it to be just videos, so I was like, yeah, I'm no expert, but Christ, I can tell someone how to cut something from a sprue and like the basic stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, we'll start throwing in some sort of written bits in there to break it up, and then I'd kind of sort of reworded it all. I'd written everything down, and my best friend, his wife's head of English, and they're going traveling next year. They're just disappearing in a van, and she's potentially wanting to do some proofreading as like a sort of on the road job. So I was like, you know what, I've got you a job. You can proofread this. I can't remember what is it, 140 pages. So I'd written it. She went through it, made it sound much more professional, and I just worked. I'd gone through, made a list, and just said, right, what is it that we've got sort of written down, and then I just sent it out initially to like 20 people and just said, can you tell me if this covers everything that you think a guide should cover for someone that's sort of getting into the hobby? And there's bits in there that can still be improved on, and I, like I said, it's something that will kind of continue to expand, if you like. And then that gave me the idea for the YouTube channel off the back of it. But the reason being was just there was nothing like that out there, and I was like, you know what, I enjoy putting stuff like that together. It wasn't a chore, literally. As I say, I just sat down on the computer for 2 or 3 nights a week, and my brother would hop on, and it quite enjoyable to do. And I think it's quite funny because I'd asked quite a lot of people for their permission to like use photos and whatnot. So, like I think Matty's minis were one of them. I think I needed, it was one of the painting style images, I think. And I was like, hey, mate, are you okay with me using this? I'm just creating a little guide. And I think people thought it was going to be like a 5-page PDF or something like that. And then I think Matty was one that I had never sent anything to about the guide other than asking him for the photos. And then I think when it released, he ended up PMing me being like, Jesus Christ, when you said it was a guide, like I did not realise that that's what you meant. So that was quite funny. Some of the feedback that I got, I think a lot, like some people thought, here we go. Even the guys that I'd asked, like, can you tell me, are these topics, like, are these okay for a miniature painting guide? I think they were like, yeah, but what are you going to come up with? But no, it went well. Yeah, it was, you know what, I was like quite surprised. I hadn't checked any stats like recently, just through, like I said, the house has taken its toll, and I kind of not kept on top of it. And then my brother just said, because he'd sort of done the website and everything, and he'd said to me the other day, how many people do you think downloaded the guide in October? Which, bear in mind, is like 7 months on. And I was like, there can't be that many. I'm thinking there's going to be 20 per day or something like this. I said, I don't know, whatever, maybe like, at the most. And he was like, no, like 1,807 people downloaded it in October. And I'm like, that's 7 months on. That's
just madness. Yeah.
So that's kind of good. It makes you see that it's
worthwhile.
It's been useful. Yeah, it's worthwhile, and it's been useful to people and whatnot. To be honest with you, I got probably the biggest sort of show of appreciation, if you like, through Facebook rather than through Instagram. Because obviously, I feel like Instagram's, although it is a community, there's not much sort of conversation happens on Instagram other than in DMs, I suppose. Whereas in Facebook, you kind of go on some of these photos that say like 500 comments and there's some absolute, stories going on there. And I posted it to a couple of the Facebook groups that were like, I think there's one called Miniature Painting Noobs. I think one of them is old farts miniature painting. And yeah, I think those were the ones that like blew up and took it off. I think initially in the first like 2 months, there were like 40,000 downloads or something stupid like that.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I guess it makes sense because I guess when you look at Instagram, a lot of people that are on there, if they go in and go and comment and stuff like that, odds are they're probably already doing painting or something like that already. Whereas a lot of those Facebook groups have just got people who are starting off. They're just, I think I might want to do an army. I think I might want to be into this Warhammer thing. I'll just join a group on Facebook because everybody's got Facebook. It's much easier. Yeah. So I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, that and Reddit. I posted it to. It wasn't the 40 because I think there's like Warhammer, there's Age of Sigmar, and then there's 40k. I think on the 40k one's obviously the biggest subreddit. I posted it to one of those, and that ended up taking off and getting like whatever it was, like 500 comments on that. But yeah, so that's kind of where that sort of it was just another little project that I'm like, okay, I know that I can do this. I've got that kind of OCD where I'm just going to sit down and like pagging this out.
Yeah, it takes a certain mindset.
Yeah, and I've just I am that person. I can do kind of
rather you than me. Yeah.
But I'd like to say I enjoy it, so it was good fun.
I'll put a link down to it, link to it in below, so people can go to it. Genuinely, really, really, even for somebody who's been painting for a long time, there's so much stuff in there that you can just. I mean, like you say, it almost links you to things. It's when people go to Wikipedia, you go to Wikipedia as like a starting place, and then you're like, okay, well, let's go down that rabbit hole. It feels like your guide can do that, and B, it goes into so much detail that half the time you don't even need to. And there's some incredible pictures in there as well. Obviously, you went on your Discord and got people to send you some pictures and stuff like that. So there's some genuinely incredibly painted miniatures in there as well.
Yeah.
You've got the eye candy in there as well.
I think it's one of those, isn't it? It's I can remember. So when I first started making it, I didn't put one image, one sort of embedded link or anything. So it was, I think when I'd finished writing all the wording, it was maybe 74 pages, something like that. And then all of a sudden, we just started throwing in all the pictures, and it kind of came alive. And then I was like, yeah, this is what I had in my mind when we first started. And I think that it's like anything else. Who likes reading big blocks of text and not seeing any pictures? We're all still kids at heart, where you're like, that looks good.
We're on Instagram because that's what we like. We don't like work.
Exactly.
That's why we're on Instagram.
Yeah. But
well, that's like I say, I'll put the links to it and stuff like that. The other thing I mentioned was obviously your custom chapter competition, which I alluded to. You must have spawned hundreds, if not like close to 1,000 new chapters for the Imperium. Yeah. Again, I guess at the minute you're going through it again. This has got to massively timestamp this episode. But you're currently going through. I think you put the second round up yesterday, day before.
So quarterfinals were yesterday. So semi-finals will be tomorrow, and then normally be a couple of days. It'll probably be the weekend then that the finals will come.
So again, where did that idea come from? Because is this the second year that you've run it, or the
second year?
Yeah, second year.
Yeah, not a clue, mate. It's one of those that genuinely, again, just weird because I wasn't even in the hobby for that long. Like I said previously, I took the Instagram account off my mate, and I was like, I think at the time it was, I'd seen, I forget, it's called 40 Cake, I think, and he does the Soul Showdown.
Yeah.
And I saw all these like sort of entries for the Soul Showdown, and so he's gone quite quiet actually, so he hasn't posted in a while, so there hasn't been a Soul Showdown this year, I don't think.
No, I don't. I remember seeing one the year before, but not this year.
So I saw that and I was like, Christ, this is like, people take this pretty serious. And then I ended up thinking, what could I do? Maybe I'd like to run a competition on Instagram. So I thought, you know what, we'll do a custom chapter competition. Bear in mind, this is me like 2 months back into the hobby, knowing nothing about the hobby, but I just like, I've got an idea, let's do it. And I reached out to 40 Cake and I was like, how do you do the like decide on the winner? And he was like, oh, I do head-to-heads through like voting. And I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And he said, but it's not too bad because the Soul Showdown that's on at the moment is invitational. So it's just 20 artists. And I was like, well, first of all, this makes sense why all these entries are so crazy, because you've
Yeah.
kind of, they're
Cherry
very
picked who
good
you want to do them.
painters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, these head-to-heads, it's 20 people. Mate, you can do that in half an hour. Like, that's all it takes. And I was like, well, it's too late now. I've announced this competition. So bear in mind, I think at the time, my Instagram account had like probably 2 actual hobby related posts on it that were to do with me. And I was like, again, I talk a good talk. So I ended up reaching out to like quite a few different companies and said what I wanted to do. And I thought, no one's going to sponsor this competition. Like, I'm someone who's come out of the woodwork, like an absolute nobody, and I'm just asking for free stuff. And I think every single person that I sent an email to said yes. And I was like, well, this is
Okay,
gone a bit crazy. Yeah, so I ended up with like quite a lot of prizes. Like Tooth and Coats ended up sponsoring, and Army Painter. I think I got Artist Opus and all those. So that drummed up like a little bit of hype for it. And then the sort of entries started coming in. And I did that thing where when I came back into the hobby, I was like, I'm going to pester some big accounts. So I'd followed quite a lot. And anyone who was like over a certain amount of followers, I just sent them a message saying, oh, yeah, I'm running this custom chapter competition. Like, would be great to have you on board. And again, I think half the people that I messaged jumped in on it. And I actually met like quite a lot of people through that competition, which is like, I'm sure in the early stages they thought, who is this annoying guy like coming out of nowhere, which I was. And I look back now and I wish I hadn't done that, but hey, well. And I think
it worked. So
yeah, I had a look yesterday because it came up as the sort of competition ended this, I think either yesterday or last year. And there was 184 entries last year, and I had to do the head-to-heads for 144. Well, 184 entries, but the issue is obviously 184 to begin with. That dropped down to 90, and then you've got to do 90 more head-to-heads, and then before you know what I mean. But I was like, 184 people have actually put in effort here to. I can't go. Right, I'm going to pick my top 20. I didn't want to do that, like, because then, that's not what it's about. Like, if people put an effort in, then you've got to put the time in back for those. So that's how that came about. And the reason why I went for a custom chapter competition is because I'd got the Ultramarine Combat Patrol. And then when you start looking up at everything, obviously the boys in blue just get quite a lot of stick in the community. And I was like, oh, God, people are going to think I'm that guy. Like, I had no idea why it was bad or anything like that. But I was like, right, I'm going to go Ultramarines, but I'll try and make them custom. So I ended up throwing some like cherry blossoms and that on them and turning them into like a little successor chapter for the Ultramarines. And then I was just like, you know what? Let's do the custom chapter competition. But yeah, there was some crazy stuff came out. And then obviously this time around, off the back of the guide, I'd obviously said that I'm going to create a YouTube channel. And quite a lot of companies, after the guide, I'd spoke to quite a lot of companies because some people reached out to me and some I reached out to because they were like, oh, do you want us to send you this and then you can review it and put it in your guide? And if it was like genuinely like good stuff, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. But I'd said I'll kind of go one up on that because I'm planning on doing a YouTube channel off the back of it. And yeah, so basically the reason I'm telling you this is that I have a pile of stuff that is I kind of feel a little bit guilty about that I've taken this long to get around to sort of doing anything with it. But if any of those companies are listening, you haven't sent me something that you've been scammed for, it is going to get used and it's going to go on YouTube. But for the same reason, I didn't want to reach out to anyone for sponsorship for this competition because I kind of felt like they've already given me enough.
Mm.
So this competition, I just sponsor myself. Like I've got, it is what it is. I've got plenty of stuff that will make good prizes, and I've got a decent local store near me that I'll go and pick some stuff up from. But this time around, I think there was 68 entries, which is I'm still happy with. It's still a good
Still a crazy
competition
amount.
for a small Instagram competition, if you like, that doesn't really mean too much to anyone. And then again, like some of the entries again, I'm like, some of this stuff's crazy.
They're bonkers. Yeah, I think I was almost too late with the first year's one, and then this year, had it been at a slightly better time of my life when I didn't have a second child, yada yada yada. I messaged you. I think I put on my Instagram like I had a really good idea for it. I was literally out walking the dog, and it was like just at the point of sunrise, and there was this crazy bit where like the sun was creating like this weird orange and blue, like dark blue contrast.
Yeah.
I was like, that could be perfect. Like that will be it. And I just never had time to do it. So maybe next year I'll enter.
Next year, mate, it'll be back. I've no doubt. I'd said to well, it's funny because I think the first year is, like I said, I'd met people now that I probably speak to on a daily or weekly basis. And Dave were one of those. Dave entered the competition, and then I got speaking to him through Instagram just through that competition. And then I ended up going on a siege course with him. And like I say, he only lives probably 20 minutes from my house, so it's not too bad. And then we've got some other projects in the pipeline. So he's got involved again this year, and he's got a little bit further, which I think he's buzzing about. His painting has come on. Well, to be fair, his painting's come on loads, and he's taking better photos.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, he'll be back again next year, and we'll see what's what. I'm hoping that obviously, I'm not saying the YouTube channel is going to blow up, but hopefully it'll be a little bit established by this time next year, and then I'll run it through YouTube as well, and we'll see if we can get a few more entries again.
No,
it just takes time. It's like it's a big.
Yeah.
People underestimate it. Like when you're doing the head-to-heads, essentially you're like making a story for every single one. You've got to take the 2 pictures and all the rest of it. And I don't mind doing it, but it's not I think I did it in groups the first time, and essentially it'd take like 30 minutes per group on a night. So I'd be like, right, I'll do that group. The next day I'll announce the winners from that group, which then gives me enough time to make the next group sort of thing. But yeah, it's good fun.
It is. It's good. It's a good little competition. So fair play. All right, I've kept you going for a long time already, but I've got one last question for you. I'm going to angle this slightly different because you're a big model guy. Do you have a favorite model? It can be 40k Sigma or whatever. Do you have, or Lord of the Rings? Do you have a particular favorite model?
Yeah, I do have it's I think it's back now in Old World, to be honest with you. And it's probably not going to be anything that you're going to think it is, and it's just through pure sort of nostalgia. And it may not be back on Old World, but I think I saw it not that long since. It is the old, what were they called back then? Were they orcs and goblins?
Mm-hmm.
The wyvern with the
yes.
It's like the really straight flat head,
yeah,
and it's got the warboss on the back. I had one of those way back when, and funnily enough, I'd said when I got back into the hobby, I was like, I'd gone on eBay to see if I could find any. I was like, I'm going to get one of them and paint it, and then I'd seen that I hadn't actually seen if it's on in the shop or not, but I'd seen it on an Old World picture.
I've definitely seen old world pictures of it. I don't know if they've re-released it or they did it as like a limited run, but it's I've definitely seen it recently.
But
it's a
I
wicked
think
model.
Just for pure nostalgia reason, I think that is the one. Just because I can always remember being like, I got it for Christmas. My mum was like, "Right, what do you want for Christmas?" And I can remember, what do we have had? Did they do a catalogue? Maybe they did.
Yeah, there was the old. Yeah, they definitely did the old catalogues back then.
You had to buy the catalogue, didn't you? Did
I
you?
think so.
I think you
I
had to
don't
buy
remember
the.
if you had to buy. Being a kid, I
It
just
was a.
remember there definitely being a catalogue
I
because
feel
it was
like it was a
chunky.
chunky thing, and you had to buy it. And I think obviously I've gone home and done what you do, where you circle what you want. And yeah, I got that. And if I remember correctly, the wings were plastic. The sort of, I think the wings were plastic. The tail was plastic, and then the sort of body and the head was metal. And I can always remember because it's
Okay.
got like quite a big gut on it. It's got quite a big belly.
Yeah,
I can always remember being like, "This is a chunky
it's a wicked
piece of
model.
metal."
Again, yeah, I'll definitely if we're watching on YouTube, I'll definitely put a picture of it. It's an incredible model. That is
Yeah,
such a great answer. Such a great answer. I
yeah.
expected
I
something
think
more modern, but I don't know why. But
no,
yeah, that's yeah.
I'd.
What a choice.
You know what? I think I'm only just sort of. Sometimes I worry about like I said the same thing to Stibio, but like worry coming on like things like this because I'm like I am not as knowledgeable as many people, and I always get nervous that someone's going to say something to me that I'm going to be like I don't know what you've just said there, like I don't know what that means, or you just got to nod and pretend or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the same way that like me and my brother will use Dave as an example because we'll be in Discord and we'll be painting and Dave will be there, and then Dave will say like, "Oh, what do you guys think to so and so when this happened and when that happened?" And I instantly look at because we'll all be on cam, and I'll instantly look at my brother, and I know that he's thinking the exact same thing as me, which is, "Who are you talking about, Dave? We don't have a clue." Like what? Like I think he'd the other day he was asking my brother had like an idea for a diorama, and he says, "Oh, I need a model that is kind of positioned like this," and Dave started reeling names off. I'm like, Dave, just send some pictures, mate, because all you may as
Yeah.
well be talking foreign right now. But no, I do like some of the modern models. There is standout pieces. For me, that's why I like Sigma. And in again in the previous sort of Stibio podcast, we'd spoken about it, and I think if I could only pick sort of one faction or whatever, I would go Stormcast just because I think the current or the recent models, I think they are like beautiful.
They are good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I maybe it's just because I painted so many Space Marines. Because obviously I picked up Sigma recently. I'm like, I can't pick Stormcast. I just can't. I can't be bothered to paint any more flat, stupid panels.
I know what you're
I
saying.
like the
Yeah.
models, but I just couldn't. So I picked Skaven instead. I went down that route. But yeah, I think the dragons for the Stormcast are pretty cool. I love big models. Anybody that knows me, I love big models. I've talked about the Primarchs already. I've got all my
Yeah.
knights. I love them. But yeah, I can't. Stormcast just don't do it for me.
No?
Not at all. I love the big turtle, the Idoneth Deepkin turtle. I talk about that every single episode. I have to talk about that turtle because it is
Managed to get it in there.
one of the best models I think GW have ever done. Massive
Yeah.
big turtle. It just reminds me. Have you ever read like Discworld or played any like stuff from Terry Pratchett?
No.
Incredible series. Terry Pratchett is. I cannot read his books. He is an incredible writer. I cannot read his books. But the idea is the fact that the world's on the back of a turtle that's flying through space. So every time I see it, that's all I can think of. And I used to play a game. So it's called Discworld, but it was a game where you played within Terry Pratchett's universe as a wizard called Rincewind, who's like a really shit wizard, basically.
Yeah.
He can't do magic properly. But yeah, so you just I spent so much of my childhood playing that game. So every time I see that turtle, I'm like, oh, it's the turtle flying through space with the world on its back. It's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Sigma models are, but again, everybody knows this from me. I think Sigma models are significantly better than 40k models.
Yeah. 100%. Like I'm again, and I'm a fantasy lover, so probably biased, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's more variation in Sigma. Like,
Yeah,
and I know
yeah.
that people are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" There's literally like, I know that there
No,
is.
I've never met anybody that's disagreed with me. I'm still waiting for somebody to change my mind, and everyone's like, "Oh no, you're right." I'm like, "Yeah." Sigma. No 40k fans like diehard 40k fans have disagreed with me yet. So
Nah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, it's just pure down to variation with Sigma. That's like that's what it is. I mean, I
yeah.
know that there's Space Marine's a Space Marine at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah, what are you going to do? I won't talk to Stibio about it because he'll kill me if I don't say that the Dreadnought's the ultimate perfection of a model. But that's the variation you get in Space Marines. It's like, oh, they've got different weapons, or they've. So, like, don't get me wrong, I love like Terminators and stuff like that. But again, it's just a variant of flat pack armor.
I get it, which makes sense for what it is, like the setting that it's in and all the rest of it. Like, whereas in, I suppose, Sigmar's kind of is fantasy's a little bit more like it does make sense for him to be sort of in rags, and then you've got the next guy that's in some huge gold armor, because that's exactly what it would be like in that kind of like you say, the big models are not. I'm trying to think.
Cool.
I'm trying to compare now to like 40k and be like, right, have we got anything that is?
I just
that
don't
I'm
think.
looking at and going, yes.
Like the Greater Demons, I think, are pretty cool. But then you compare, you can take the Greater Demons in Sigma, so instantly that way they can be Sigma models. But then when you look at like I guess a lot of the stuff in Sigma is so much newer and so probably benefits from being newer. But you look at like the Gargants that they brought out and stuff like that. They're incredible sculpts, absolutely fantastic sculpts. So I think they look better than a lot of the Exalted Demons, the Greater Demons. Even like Keros Fateweaver, who's it's not that old a model. He's a really cool model, really loads and loads of detail. But I just
I'll even that, like I do like Space Orcs and whatnot, but this I can't even think of anything. I'm trying to argue against myself, really, but I'm failing.
I think there are some really, really good models in 40k, but I just think as a range, the freedom they've got in Sigmar that they've exercised shows that they know GW really know how to make a good model. And I think 40k, I'm gonna get so much flack on this again. The 40k universe hinders the models that you can get in it.
Yeah, I think the thing is with like the reason why I do sort of like Sigmar fantasy, whatever you want to say, like in general, not just with. I'm massively into like animals and nature, so I love the fact that it kind of I know that obviously you've got space wolves and whatnot, you've got but
it's not the same, is it?
Nah, it's not the same. Whereas in it kind of does make sense for those creatures to be in that universe. So I like the idea of an Auric riding some massive boar and then like more crusher
boys on
and
boars.
all that. So I think that's what does it for me. Is with that is a lot of the time it's not necessarily. Although I do like the characters, I think the sort of creature side of Sigmar is what does it.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I'll leave it there on that hatred of 40k that we just put out. Well, that'll be the last question. So yeah, everyone can pan me off the back of this one. But yeah, thank you for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. It's been nice to have you on as a new guest and welcome you to the First Rank Fire family of guests. It's getting longer and longer. Obviously, if people want to find you over your DiceandPigment over on Instagram. You've got the Painters Portal and the Discord, everything like that. So I'll put all the links and stuff like that. We've not talked much about your Discord. It's a super, super lively Discord. Really, really incredible painters on that Discord. It shocks me every time that I go into like the whip or the finished stuff. People are insane on that Discord.
Yeah,
breaks my mind.
Just casually dropping stuff, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It's the frequency in which it gets dropped. I'm like, "Wait, what? You finished that already?"
Yeah, it's just like, I've just painted this in the last 2 days, and you're like, how? How?
Yeah, delete Discord server.
Yeah, I'm just gonna step away from this server for a little while so I can have get some pride back into my soul.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really cool. It's a really lively Discord server, especially. I think every time you run the chapter competition, more people come in because they want.
Yeah, that's it. They find it through that, and obviously, it's quite funny because since releasing the guide, I've never pushed it again since. Like I always say, like it's been 6 months. I should probably go through the socials again and push it because there'll be people that have just come in that would benefit from it or whatever. So it always makes me laugh when like now someone will join and then they'll be like, oh, hi, I saw your guide on Reddit, and I think, I wonder how you found that guide on Reddit, because the Reddit thread is now 6 months old. I'm like, always
Just
an
like
interesting.
surfing back through and popping up on Google and stuff like that.
Yeah, must be just through Google searches.
Yeah, but no, it's a really great Discord server. So yeah, I'd highly recommend anybody that doesn't follow Norm, go follow him, join the Discord. It's really good. It's a really good little community you've built, and let's get you up to like 7.5, at least 7.5K, if not going beyond that. It's
Yeah.
well deserved. And yeah, I hope that everyone who's listened has had as much fun as I have in doing this. If you did like it, please do all the standard things: subscribe, leave a review wherever you found it, follow all the different places you could get have different names for it. But I really appreciate it. It really helps me. And if you want me, I'm First Rank Fire on Instagram. You can come to my Discord as well. I don't have as many people as Norm, but Norm, I think you are in my Discord in the
I
backgrounds
am
of
in
it.
your Discord. Yeah,
Yeah.
lurking.
Yeah, there's quite a few lurkers in mine, which is but yeah, come and join the Discord. I'm like one set of models ahead of my Instagram. So if you want to see my stuff earlier, it's in the Discord like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of my Instagram. So
Yeah.
yeah, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Norm, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Catch you later.